Hey, it's Dr. Deb Matthew, president of the North Carolina Integrative Medical Society, and I'm so honored to be here with you this morning with Dr. Patrick Hanaway, who is a family practice physician from Asheville, North Carolina. He has practiced there for 24 years. His practice is family to family. He is also very distinguished. He is a research collaborator for the Cleveland Clinic Center for Functional Medicine, and he is a co-chair of the expert advisory board of the IFM. And he's coming to speak in July at our Southeast Regional Integrative Medicine Conference on the topic of transformation, a healing journey through cancer. So thank you so much for joining us this morning. And I'd love to get you to share a little bit about what you're going to be bringing to the conference in July.
Well, thanks, Deb. I've lectured in the past, and generally I'm known for bringing content that relates to functional medicine, the gut, the role, the interactions that are going on, and that's plays a vitally important role in my life as a clinician, as a teacher. But when I was asked to speak this year, what I'm called to talk about is actually my own journey. One that it's funny, even here on video, I'm choking up a little bit about it. And that is in November of 2018, I was diagnosed with a stage 4 laryngeal carcinoma. And when any of us gets that hears those kinds of words or hears stage 4, it's like, oh my gosh, what is up in my life, and how do I work with this, and what does it mean? And for me, it was sort of like an immediate call. I'd said so many times to patients who had been diagnosed with cancer that cancer is an opportunity for transformation in your life. And you can say those words and mean those words, and then when they're happening to you, it means something really different in terms of the depth of what unfolds there. So I had a journey of trying to figure out, well, how do I work with this, and what do I do? And my talk is going to talk about that journey. It's going to talk about the journey of deciding to work with radiation therapy and chemotherapy, because of everyone I talked to in all of the top places and all the cutting edge researchers around the world said, do this first, and it's stage 4. So it's like, okay, well, I don't want to leave anything on the table. It's like, I got to do everything I can. But then if I'm going to do that, how do I do that in a way that brings my biological terrain into the optimal opportunity for healing that I can? How do I use a functional medicine model to be able to work with understanding all those aspects? Go into talking about nutrition. I was very quickly, I was very familiar with a ketogenic diet and familiar with at least the concepts of the metabolic basis of cancer, and I'd read these things and been a little bit like, that might be interesting. It's probably being oversold. But of course, when I'm in the situation, I'm like, well, I'm going to try that. But it's maybe just fortunate for me that of the approximately 5 cancers that do really well with a ketogenic diet, one of them is head and neck cancer, particularly with radiation therapy. And that's where the data is there. I didn't know all the data at that time. I talked to the top people and said, okay, this is what I got to do, and jumped in. And I think I was back into ketosis by the second day, focusing on therapeutic ketosis, focusing on fasting before chemotherapy, and then moving into, when you have a ENT cancer, you need to get a tube because you may not be able to swallow. And so, learning the aspects of, well, how do you do a ketogenic diet, with its high fat content through a feeding tube, and there's nothing available, and, getting family support. And my wife was incredible with, kitchen chemistry of putting together concoctions. And so there's that aspect. And then there's the aspect around really opening myself up to receiving help from other people and connection. And my own work with the Wet'suwet'en people, the Huichol people, and the Sierra Madres. We see a yarn painting behind me here that talks about, some aspects of this particular side of growing corn. How do we grow corn in our lives? That's like, how do we live in right relationship with the natural world? And so, I began to really consider how I'd focused and the importance of asking for help and recognizing self-care, and that the best way for me, I had to care for myself and I had to receive help from others. And it was so incredible. It was like transformational, so this, along with acupuncture, along with prayer, along with energy healing and frequency specific microcurrent, and there's a list of things I'll go through. There were other things that were there, but these are the key elements. And they're not different than what I've known for 30 years in practice. Since I was in medical school almost 40 years ago, these were these are the important things: how we deal with stress, how we connect with people, how we care for ourselves, how we deal with nutrition. And yet the very practical application was one that led to my doctors, who were open to these ideas, saying, how come you're not getting sick? How come you're not having problems? How come you have energy? How come you're not having major radiation burns? How come, you're not acting like our other patients? You're still swallowing, you're still talking, you're not having major problems even, and I would have a few supplemental calories through the feeding tube. But by 2 weeks after treatment, they said, well, we can take the tube out 2 weeks after treatment if you don't lose weight. After you're done with treatment. So it was 2 weeks after, and I hadn't lost weight. And overall, I think I lost like 8 pounds during the time, which I've kept off. And they just were like, this doesn't happen. We expected you to lose 25 or 30 pounds and be cachectic. And, so I said, well, these are the things that I did. I like to help other people and talk about it. And every one of us is our own N of one. We're our own case study. So it doesn't mean that this is the array of things that are going to work for someone else with a stage 4 laryngeal carcinoma, but it does mean that we all have our own journeys that we have to do to find out what is it. And we as clinicians, how do we array our toolkit to be open to help and listen to people and guide them? And I was also fortunate. I worked with an integrative oncologist named Nalini Chilkoff, who's based in Santa Monica. It turns out that our life paths had nearly connected over about 30 years, and we never met. And when we met, it's like, oh, you're like a sister of mine that I don't know how I've never met you. We have so many friends in common, and she helped to hold the space, for being the quarterback, because I couldn't do that. I needed someone to trust, to say, here's the data, here's the kinds of other micronutrient and other antioxidant and nutritional support you need. And my wife, who's a doc, was great in the conversation, but she couldn't be the quarterback either, if you excuse the sports analogy. I needed someone to be the captain of the team, and Nalini helped in that process. And that's what we can do as clinicians. And we may not be integrative oncologists, but we can hold the space, for our patients to be able to decide what is the best way to live in the world. I had a quote on my refrigerator that before this that just became more poignant, and it said, it's a Zen saying. It says, we all have 2 lives to live. The second one begins when we realize we only have one. So that's what I'm going to talk about.
In 2006, when I first started my journey into functional medicine, you were one of the lecturers who were lecturing all the time, all over the place. And I listened to you, I don't know how many times, but whenever there were options for where to go, I always came to listen to you, because you always laid things out in such a clear way where it made so much sense. And I really appreciate the impact that you've had on my career, because you taught me a lot of the things that I know. And I'm really glad that you're doing well, you look healthy, and I really look forward to hearing all of these pearls of wisdom. And I hope, do you believe that your oncologists have had their interest piqued? Do you think they're interested in this, or do you think they're you're a one-of?
Um, no, interestingly enough, the oncologist was known in the area as being someone who's really open, and he's nearing retirement, and he continues to be open, and he's really, compassionately connecting with people. The radiation oncologist was much more conservative, and we've gone through this, and he's been much more like, well, tell me more about this, and how did you do this, and what, and so they're interested in those conversations. We've got a big tumult in our oncology group here in Asheville these days. So we'll see how that plays out. But no, there is interest in, and everyone was very, not only kind but interested in what's unfolded. And as not that we can have expectations, but no evidence of disease at 6 months, no evidence of disease at 12 months on PET scans, follow-up scanning. I had some specialized scanning done just last month that again, shows no evidence of any disease. Metabolically, things are going well. And 2 years is kind of a crux point in terms of really shifting the risk profiles. But as we know, those are population-based, not people-based.
Okay.
And I feel great. I feel better than I have in a long time, and I'm taking care of myself. I'm not working so hard. I still teach. I still see patients. But as you hear, the message is a little different than it has been in the past, or expanded.
Well, thank you so much for your time.
You bet. You bet. Thanks, Deb.